All right, today we're going to tear down an official document from the very highest level of government. But get this, it's not about foreign policy or the national budget. It's about something you probably used this morning, your shower.
So, yeah, how does something so normal, so everyday, end up getting a presidential command? It's a great question, actually, and it really gets to the heart of how laws and regulations get made and, unmade in the US. This one little example, it shows us exactly how that whole process can play out.
So let's dive right in. The document at the center of our story today is Executive Order 14264. Now, an executive order is basically a direct command from the president. And this one, well, this one has a very, very particular target in its sights.
Yep, that's right. The official title is, and I'm not kidding, Maintaining Acceptable Water Pressure in Showerheads. So, let's get the basic facts on the table, shall we?
Okay, so here are the vitals. The order was signed by President Donald Trump back on April 9, 2025. Then, a few days later, it was published in the Federal Register, which, is the official daily journal of the U.S. government. That publication, that's the key part. That's what gives it the force of law. So, why? What was the big reason for all this?
Well, the why is laid out right there in Section 1 of the order. And the whole argument really boils down to one core idea, the problem of overregulation.
And this is the opening line. A direct quote. Overregulation chokes the American economy and stifles personal freedom. Wow. I mean, that sets a pretty clear philosophical tone, right? The idea is that too many rules are just a burden. And from this really big idea, the order suddenly zooms way, way in on something super specific.
And this is how they connect the dots. The order basically says, look at showerheads. They're a small but meaningful example of this whole problem. It's framing them as a perfect case study in government going too far, and it points a finger directly at where it thinks the problem started.
Yeah, the language here is, well, it's very political. The document actually uses the phrase the Obama-Biden war on showers to describe the regulations it's going after. So you can see this isn't just about repealing some boring rule. It's about framing this whole thing as a counterattack in a bigger political fight.
And here's the history they're talking about. The order specifically targets a regulation from the end of 2021, which itself was an update to an even earlier rule from 2013. So, at its core, this executive order is laser-focused on one thing, getting rid of that 2021 rule, with the argument being that it was just way too complicated.
And to make its point, the order highlights this giant number. I mean, it's right there in the title for Section 2. They call the 2021 rule the 13,000-word regulation defining showerhead. They're really using that number to paint a picture of a definition that was just absurdly, ridiculously long.
And this right here, this is the central contrast the order wants you to see. On one side, you've got what it calls a multi-thousand-word government definition. And on the other, a simple, one short sentence definition from the dictionary. That's the whole justification for this thing, right there in that comparison.
Okay, so the argument has been made, but how does the order actually get this done? Let's look at the mechanics of the repeal.
Section 2 lays out a really direct four-step process. Super simple. Step 1, the President tells the Secretary of Energy what to do. Step 2, the Secretary has to publish a notice in the Federal Register. Step 3, boom, the 2021 regulation is officially rescinded, canceled. And Step 4, the repeal takes effect 30 days after that publication. It's all designed to be quick and clean.
Okay, but this next part is a really key detail. Normally, when you change a regulation, you have to go through what's called a notice and comment period. It's where the public gets to weigh in. But this order, it just skips that. It explicitly says the process is unnecessary because I am ordering the repeal. That is a pretty powerful use of executive authority because it's bypassing a step that's usually there for public accountability.
All right, and finally, like pretty much any official document, the order wraps up with some standard legal stuff. People often call it boilerplate language, but is actually really important for understanding the limits of the order.
So this fine print, you'll find it in Section 3, and it basically clarifies three key things. First, it says this order won't mess with the budget director's job. Second, whatever happens has to be done according to the law. And third, and you see this clause all the time, it makes it clear that this order doesn't suddenly create a new reason for someone to sue the government. Okay, so we've walked through the why, the how, and all the fine print. But if we take a step back and look at the big picture, what does a document like this really show us?
Here's what it all boils down to.
Forget about water pressure and showerheads for a second. At its heart, this executive order is a perfect example of a tool. It's a tool of executive power, and it's being used to quickly and directly reverse something a previous administration did, all while framing it as a fight against too many rules.
And all of this leaves us with a much, much bigger question, doesn't it? When is a regulation actually essential, and when is it just overreach? I mean, this order gives one answer for one very specific rule. But that debate, that line between necessary protection and just a burdensome rule, that is a constant struggle in our government. And it affects everything, from the shower you took this morning all the way up to the entire economy.